And I think you can debate LSU versus Ohio State, but listen, LSU still has to finish the season, and Ohio State only has to play Penn State and at Michigan, and then obviously they'll end up with Minnesota in the Big Ten championship game. So I think Ohio State will work itself out, but I came away just blown. I was blown away, not coming away, but blown away by what I saw from LSU. I mean, Burrow has two hands around the Heisman right now, and I don't know. I can't imagine him dropping it or losing it unless something just unforeseen were to happen, like a shocking loss this weekend, perhaps to LSU when LSU plays at Ole Miss, or maybe something at the end of the year. But he could even afford a bad game because I don't think anyone is really within striking distance. And LSU has just had one of the most unbelievable transformations. I mean, Ed Orgeron is the national coach of the year. He has come back from about as far as you can imagine. I mean, he got the interim tag 3 years ago. He lost to Alabama and to Florida at home. Nobody gave him a chance at even getting this job. And had it not been for Tom Herman turning it down at the last minute, he wouldn't have gotten the job. And he went out and just played one of the best hands of poker I've ever seen by bringing in Joe Brady from the New Orleans Saints. And I mean, this is a guy that, as you all know, 10 years ago his career was over. He got fired at Ole Miss. He went to Southern Cal. He went to Tennessee and then Southern Cal with Lane Kiffin. Probably should have gotten the Southern Cal job. Think about this. In 2013, he beat Stanford late in the season. Pat Hayden decided, nah, I'm not going to give it to Ed Orgeron, even though the players love him. He went for Steve Sarkisian instead, and Sarkisian gets fired after the public drunkenness, and Southern Cal has not been the same since.
Talking to Paul Finebaum with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line from the Paul Finebaum Show on the SEC Network. Paul, on the other side, looking at the quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, who we saw was not 100%, coming off yet another round of that tightrope surgery leading up to this game. What do you make of the conversation around his performance, especially now in big games where his record has not been as stellar in the most recent sample sizes?
No, I mean, listen, he can say anything. His supporters can say anything they want, but in the two biggest games that he has played in recent times, we all know he came in and won the national championship two and a half years ago. He's been banged up, he's been limping, and he hasn't looked great. Now, when I say he hasn't looked great, he was fantastic in the second half. But to me, this game took a major turn, Mike, in the opening minutes when Alabama marched all the way down the field and Tua turned it over when he changed hands. And that was just a critical moment because it stopped the momentum, and LSU seemed to just grab it back. And then he made some just unforeseen mistakes late in the half when Alabama just collapsed, going down by 20, and then he had some really great moments. I mean, I think he passed for more than 400 yards, but I don't know what it would have been like with 100% Tua, but we'll never know because he wasn't 100%, and I think it's just an excuse to say Alabama would have won if Tua had been healthy. LSU was pretty unbelievable on Saturday.
We're talking to Paul Finebaum of the Paul Finebaum Show. Long-term ramifications. A lot has been made of the LSU players walking out and talking to some of the recruits that were there for Bama at the time. Long-term, in a couple of years, what effect does this game have on both programs?
Well, I think we could be looking at a major paradigm shift in the SEC. If you want to complain that LSU players talk to the recruits, so what? Why not? I mean, that was the biggest win LSU's had in years. And it was in Alabama's house, and all the criticism of Ed Orgeron's post-game speech, which inadvertently got it, well, not inadvertently, a player posted it. That's what you do. I mean, that's why Ed Orgeron is beloved, and he is authentic, and he's certainly not a young guy in comparison to Nick Saban, but Nick Saban's 68 years old, and this is now the second consequential game in a row that he has been outcoached. And I say consequential because Alabama has not played a consequential game since the national championship game. Dabo Swinney severely outcoached him in that game, and Ed Orgeron did here. And if you want to come back and say, well, it was only a 5-point game, if you watch the game, you felt like those two teams were separated by more than 5 points.
Paul Finebaum joining us here on Golic and Wingo. And again, talking about that postgame. These players need to stop with the stinking live feeds in the postgame. I have zero problem with Coach O and what he said in that locker room. I mean, what a great moment for them and that team and that victory. All right, Paul, in the first committee rankings, they basically told an 8-0 Minnesota, show us, and put them at number 17. They beat number 4 Penn State, never trailed in that game. What did they show you?
Well, they showed all of us that they are for real, and PJ Fleck has done it again. I mean, we wondered a couple of years ago, could he do it at Minnesota? And this is really unbelievable when you consider the job he's done. Now, listen, that was the first time we've really seen them up against what I would call a really quality team, and they came through, and it was an amazing scene. They have to finish the job, though. I think they'll move up significantly, but I don't think they'll be inside the top 5 or 6. I would put them probably at 6th, whether the committee agrees. I'm not. Who knows what this committee is going to do? But they are certainly in a position now. And if Minnesota wins out, they're going to the playoff. And you could even argue that they would be one of those one-loss teams should they go to the Big Ten championship game and lose to Ohio State. But, I mean, there's so many complexities left, and that's the only thing I'll say about people who overreact to what we're seeing. I mean, last week there were some of our friends up and down the hallway who I thought were going to have a coronary when Clemson was number 5. What it did was it got to Dabo Swinney where he left his starters in late in that NC State game, and they ran it up against the Wolfpack. And I think you'll see maybe a little more of that. But Minnesota doesn't have to do anything other than win. They're not about an eye test. They're about winning football games right now.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app, and for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.